Pigeons 420. Mr. Grow It. And Rob from Cannabis Lifestyle TV. From the Stash Podcast.
From the Stash Podcast, this is your boy Rob from Cannabis Lifestyle TV, Mr. Grow It, also known as Chris to us, and Pigeons 420. Welcome back, boys.
Hey,
What's
boys.
going on?
How you guys doing? Happy belated St. Patrick's Day. That was like a few weeks
Yeah.
ago, maybe. But
Yeah,
we missed it. We missed it.
Yeah.
It was,
it's weird with
I had
the
fun.
holidays now. They pass and I don't realize that they happen. I'm like, fuck, that's right.
Right? It's like, hey, I used to celebrate that
Remember?
when I didn't have a job or
and
responsibilities.
COVID around everywhere. Like, oh,
Or COVID? What's that?
Yeah.
So you guys
I
don't
know.
drink
So
on
that's
St.
where
Patty's
it's
Day? It's a
difficult.
big drinking day, right?
I drink every day, Chris.
Normally.
I thought we talked about this.
Every day?
He's like, I thought we already
Get
discussed this.
checked
night.
into
Yeah,
AA
3
on
drinks.
this.
Yeah, I drink every day. Yeah, I'm a parent. Actually, as a matter of fact, I got a beer just right over here.
Oh,
You know, I've learned to have my evening drinks too. I think it is a parent thing. Once you become a parent, you have to do it to stay sane.
Just stay sane.
And
So
if
you
you're
don't
doing
beat your
it
kids.
Before being a parent, it's pre-gaming. You know?
Pre-gaming, right. Yeah. We don't party anymore as a parent either. It's just a family barbecue.
Yes. Yes, that's the way to put it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
today, you know, it's funny we talk about these things like that, the stigmatized things that don't have a stigma as much, like drinking daily. That's totally cool with a lot of people.
That's acceptable.
But that plant, for some reason, still has that negative stigma. You know, it took me years. I mean, you could definitely relate to this, Pete. It took me years to be able to let people know this is what I do. I'm the guy on YouTube. I'm the guy on CLtv.com. Like, that's what I do. All my clients in the marketing space, I was afraid to tell them. You know, I was worried that it was going to ruin my business. It was going to ruin my reputation, which is a ridiculous feeling to have in today's day and age.
Agreed. And I think the three of us both all hid our faces at one time. Chris, you did too, didn't you? When you first started, was just a voiceover or talking head?
Oh, hid. I think you said
Hid.
hit. I think you
Oh,
said
hit
hit
our
our
faces,
Hit my
punch ourselves.
face. What? Hid face. Yeah,
You
oh,
might,
yeah.
yeah.
I had to hide my face because I had an employer, right? So I had somebody who hired me, and if they found out I was doing videos on a drug that's federally illegal, I could potentially lose my job. So I had to hide my face at first. Now, luckily, I was able to leave that job, and now I can show my face.
Same boat.
That's always a big perk. That's always a big perk. And that's a big shout out to the community, the people watching or listening, that you guys have literally been able to help in the confidence side, financially, support with the community, people that we can bounce back on and be ourselves to. So shout out to all of y'all, of course.
Absolutely.
And that was like for, I'd say the first year, maybe 2 years, I was just the camera guy and editor and the things I do now a lot for, you know, CLtv, but my face was never there. It was always just Trey. And it was just me being paranoid, me thinking, you know, that stigma's there. And it's there because of bullshit. It's there because of the reefer madness stuff, the things that we've gone over on the war against drugs or the stuff talking with Thomas Howard, where it's just like, it's not a reality. The stigma is a reality, but what stigmatized it is not a reality. There's no reason why we should feel this way based on what judgment's been handed down from people who don't know anything about this plant. But for some reason, it's there. And it doesn't matter if you're in a legal state, legal country, no matter where you're at, there's going to be a handful of people who do dictate your life, potentially, that may judge that. And that's where, like, how we can break that stigma, what we can do as individuals is the key. And I think that's the core focus on this episode here, is to talk about what, as the individual consumer, grower, advocate, whatever, what can you do to break that stigma? And I think it starts at home. I think first thing starts is in home, being the individual inside of you. Be the best version of you possible. If you're a skid, I'll be blunt about it. If you're a skid, then you're going to represent us in a bad way. If you are dirty as hell and you don't work in any, you don't have to have a job. I'm saying you don't work, you don't do anything physical, you don't get out in life, you don't make some sort of financial gain in your life, and you just smoke all the time, well, they're going to say, lazy stoner, it's because of the plant, it's because of the bud. It's like, no, it's not because of that, it's because of the individual. That motherfucker was a loser pre and post cannabis. That has nothing to do with the plant. Trust me, I know a lot of those people.
Right. And I think a lot of the stigma is the issue of people attributing people's titles to that of a plant. Now, to phrase that in English, you know, it's like, just because somebody has a flaw doesn't mean it's related to cannabis. Humans are flawed by nature, and we don't blame milk We don't blame vehicles. We don't blame education. We don't even blame parents anymore. So it's like, why do we point the finger at cannabis to be the sole driver of what makes somebody or something acceptable or, a good example of? And that starts with public perception. And when we had Howard on, it was to much my surprise, but not, that when I asked him what needs to change in order for legalization to take effect, he said public perception. People still perceive potheads as potheads. You know what I mean? And there's the idea of being stoned and successful isn't a concept, right? Despite the fact that we have a number of people of power that are stoned and successful, and it starts with public perception. And we still see it subtly. You kind of touched on too, Rob, when you say like whether you're in a legal or a restricted state. I'm in Canada, where technically it's legal, but yet you still have provincial governments that put out incredible propaganda pieces in regards to cannabis. Like the amount of warnings and labels that go to women who are pregnant or drivers who use cannabis. There's a lot of studies out there that suggest using cannabis while pregnant is a positive. There's plenty of studies out there that also state that using cannabis and driving using cannabis doesn't affect your motor skills while driving in the same way that alcohol affects your motor skills in driving. So to conflate these two is an issue, and to hear it from a government, that's damning, and that needs to change first.
Well, the funny thing is, up until recently, it was a performance enhancer in MMA, and now it's a performance inhibitor in the real world. It's weird.
That's crazy. And to piggyback off both of you guys, education. I think there's a massive lack of education. And to start, it should really be, like Rob said, within yourself, right? Educate yourself on how THC interacts with the body, how CBD interacts with this body, right? How these cannabinoids are interacting with the endocannabinoid system. You have terpenes, you got flavonoids in the trichomes as well as cannabinoids, and knowing all that background and how it impacts your body, and then taking that education and schooling others on it that don't know. For example, my brother, who is about 6 years older than me, never smoked in his life, never consumed cannabis in his life, always against it, right? Now it's a big change because I'm all about it, right? So here I am, his little brother. It was a little bit of a shock for him when I told him I was working in the cannabis industry and I consumed and all that stuff. But I've been educating him, and it takes time, right? I let him know about what THC is, what CBD is, how that interacts with the body. I let him know that smoking isn't the only way to consume, right? Some people are really just worried and they're against it because they feel like smoking is going to damage your lungs, and that they don't know about edibles and how you can consume that way, and that's a different way, and that has less impact on your lungs arguably, and so on and so forth. So educating others on how cannabinoids, terpenes, flavonoids, how those are within the plant, how they interact with your body, and also how cannabis now, it's easier to name the states that don't have medical laws. So a lot of people have a medical license, right? So I actually have a medical a license, I guess you call it, right? Approval to grow cannabis for medical reasons. Anxiety disorders, autism, AIDS, cancer, chronic pain, opioid dependency. There are a number of different medical uses for this. So
glaucoma is not the only one.
So for people to be against it on a medical avenue, they just need to be educated. They most likely just need to be educated, in my opinion. So I think educating yourself at first, and then those folks that are against it, slowly educating them on what you know about the plant and how it interacts with the body and so on and so forth. And hopefully just we're moving people over one by one.
Agree. I think a big problem is people stuck in the mud. It's people who their belief system is what it is. It's a lot of it does fall into the Bible Belt states, the places that are a little more old school, and their belief is this is just like the hard drugs, and now we're just getting getting the kids on it, and it's like that's not the goal here at all. The more you remove something from accessibility, the more attractive it becomes to a lot of people. It really does. The more of an abundance it is, the less seemingly kids want to do it. Like the kids that I grew up with who had bud everywhere don't smoke to this day. Straight up. It's weird. But me, who I thought it was charms, my mom forever told me it was charms or cloves, and I was like, oh, I don't know what that shit. Then I found out it was herb. I'm like, what? And it was always hidden, so it was always attractive to me. It just is it's the human nature. For some reason, when there's a small amount of something, the demand is higher.
It's the
I don't know why. So
it's sorry, go ahead. Finish. No, you're gonna.
I was
finish.
just gonna say, I think that's where these people need to understand that it's the kids are a concern for everybody. Nobody wants kids to get stoned. I don't want to share my weed with kids, let alone do I want kids to be getting stoned. So I think that if you're listening, need to understand that it's about the adults. It's medical and recreational use for adults.
Right. And and again, to carry on that, and I as a father, as a parent, have a responsibility to teach and to educate my children on what it is. It's not a forbidden fruit. It's not a forbidden fruit. The reality of the situation is, how many kids do you know go around popping Tylenol, Advil? They don't. Why? Because they know exactly what it is. They don't have a headache. They don't have muscle pain. They don't use it. I honestly know there are kids that go through medicine cabinet, or like, teens and stuff. I had these in my circle, but I'm just, that became more of a it was an addiction thing, and they were getting their things from somewhere else first, and then it kind of led to that. But the reality is that when I was a child, it was the wacky weed. Don't touch it. You touch it, and you're in a lot of shit. That was it. Full stop. There was nothing. Well, why is it so horrible? And then when you actually tried it, it was like, whoa, it's not that bad. And I'm going to hell for this? Give me another one. Give me another one.
That's the side of it that makes no sense. It's like,
it doesn't make any sense.
Explain to me why. I know that heroin and crack and these harder things, I see people from me seeing these people and from just looking at it as it is. Like, it doesn't look like an all-natural growing casual thing. It looks rough. Rough. And that's just basic judging a book by its cover judgment. But someone would say the same thing about wax or THCA, diamonds, things like that. But I think it's kind of common sense that these other things, you don't see faces of bud. You see faces of meth. You don't see people getting strung out on cannabis.
That's a face of weed, man.
Exactly. Face of weed would be from like me yesterday, last night, trying to get GTA installed, to like me seeing it just installed. I'm like,
right.
And that's face of weed. And eventually I'm just, because I'm chilling, stoned and hungry and tired. Like, that's the worst it's going to do. And I think is if the consumers can represent themselves better, they can educate the next generation, and the cultivators, the growers too. That's where another big responsibility on breaking the stigma comes in, is these Pablo Escobars out there, these fake ass Pablos, because you ain't making no Pablo money. But it's like, I understand the black market need, and I'm supporting free market. I don't think there should be too control on it. But I will say, the ones who are pushing it, I know people personally, Rico Acts, things like that, just got out of prison for 10 years. They were doing the fucking most. And this is exactly why a lot of people don't want these cultivation laws. This is exactly why people are saying, no, we can't have this. They're creating the cartels coming here and this and this. Like, no, if we were just growing our plants in our backyard or in our basement for ourselves, or supplying the right people and doing it on the up and up, like this great, beautiful plant should be doing, and not treated like a hard drug, there'd probably be less stigma around the growing community as well. We wouldn't have people thinking that we're doing a bunch of shady shit. Wouldn't have PayPal shutting us down over thinking we're trapping across the fucking world. Like, a lot of different things that has stigmatized the industry is from some of the manufacturers, so to speak, is where they just try to do the most. And grow for you. If you're a caregiver, do your thing. Otherwise, do it on the up and up.
Doesn't help. You've also got when you've got enforcement on these laws. You're watching like a 65-year-old man and a 66-year-old woman getting cuffed out of their house, and the cops raided it with 15 guys, a tank, and ARs. They burst through the door and 3 windows to catch 75 plants. The story goes to, they're not supplying kids. There's already a market that exists. this is the market, and they can't legitimize themselves because of this exact conversation we're having right now, because of the stigma and the lack of attention that's given to the fact that there's already people here doing the work, and they're the ones that are being punished for it. So it's frustrating to see this level of enforcement as well when we're really just we're policing the growth of a plant.
Yeah, I think it
are
goes
all
both
of these
ways in
people
that
supplying the
sense.
mafia? I don't think so.
Well, and that's
you
the
know?
thing is it's not. That's where the belief system for some reason is cartel shit. And it's like, listen, they would sell if the My Pillow gets banned, right? They'll sell the shitload of My Pillows. So like, it don't matter what the fuck it is, whatever is illegal and has a high margin for them, and they have access to. Any group of organized crime is going to try to do this. I mean, look at the speakeasy days back with alcohol. Who do you see nowadays who has an underground bar and they're selling illegal alcohol? Like it's fucking rare. There might be some random places with moonshine in Kentucky or somewhere like that, but I don't see that being common like you do with something like the plant that's being scrutinized and treated this way, where people have to
because
hide.
you make more money getting into the legal market. The legal market is attractive. The legal market has some some opportunity there, whereas in legal market there is no opportunity. There's nothing there. It's capped. It's owned by a few major actors, and you can't penetrate it.
That's what
Even
the black market flourishes.
I right now I could start making my own booze, and I could get it into local so I could start getting it into local liquor stores, and I could have that shit going with out in a matter of time, in no time.
I know local
much
craft
easier than
brewers
you
who
could.
did it in their basement for years, who now have a restaurant and have stuff inside of places,
Right.
and they did not
Right.
go through anywhere near the bullshit that growers have to go through
Try to do that with
to get their
cannabis.
plants up there. That's what I'm saying. I'm
Like,
not saying
not a
like
chance.
anti-black market this and that. I'm just saying the people who are doing like way more, like I'm talking like 3,000-4,000 plant in multiple locations and doing the fucking most, and then over state lines and this and that. They're making it harder on the little guy who just wants to be able to get their brand into the fucking local store. So until the both ends, where it's like doing your due diligence of like, hey man, follow the rules to an extent, I don't split hairs over numbers and this and that, but it does come down to the point where you have a lot of people who they push it, man. They're not in it for the right reason. They're in it just to cash crop, and that's where the stigma comes on us as growers. We're like, oh, you guys are just teaching people how to do this. Like, no. I love the plant. I don't give a fuck what you do with it. That's your own responsibility. That's you. Just don't abuse it. Don't push it, because we already have people thinking we're doing that and we're not. That's the downside. Here in Michigan, where our plant count is great, but we have weird restrictions that come up, and they're like, oh, well, it's because they could potentially be selling it or doing this and that. It's like, no. We just consume a lot. Or what if we've got cultivars that don't produce a whole lot? So we're getting 1-2 Z's a plant, potentially. I mean, it's a realistic thing. Or someone's doing all autoflowers. Or so many variables. You can't just throw it out there. But there's a thought process amongst the elites in the government that we're just a bunch of criminals in the underground, cartel style shit. It's like, what is going on? Who decided this?
So how do we stop
So-
it? Oh, sorry, go Chris.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So we're touching upon a lot of different reasons why people would be against legalization, right? The consuming and driving we talked about. People are really afraid that it's going to be like bars where people are drinking and driving. Well, the roads are going to get a lot worse because now people are consuming and driving. The kids access, right? We touched upon that. If kids were to get access, I mean, we know through scientific studies that it does negatively impact the brain if you smoke. What is it, prior to age 25 or something like that? So that's a huge
I'm
concern
dumb as
for
fuck then.
going against legalization. Damage to the body, cartels, black market. So we're touching upon all these things, and that's where I was going to ask the same question as you, Pigeons. Like, how do we, on some of these things, how do we change that perception? Consuming and driving, touching back on that, how do we convince these people who think that the roads are going to be flooded with people who are smoking and driving and there's going to be a lot more accidents? I think one of the reasons why is looking at the data, right? We've been legalized in Colorado since 2012, and that's Washington and Oregon as well. What do their driving records look like? I don't think traffic accidents due to DUIs
It actually, if you-
particularly have increased significantly to the point where it's matching with what these people are saying. But
It actually depends on where. This is just it actually depends on who you look at. If you guys remember the famous argument between Joe Rogan and Steven Crowder in regards to cannabis on the Joe Rogan Experience. Do you guys ever see that? No. They both presented a very similar study. However, because you weren't, I'm just going to nutshell, because we weren't doing these kind of studies before, like Colorado was legal, right? Naturally, the evidence when it comes to cannabis use and accidents is going to go up. Because before legalization, people weren't admitted. They weren't regularly admitting to using cannabis on the road, or at all. Or they weren't studying the use of cannabis specifically in regards to accidents. So when you actually look at the accidents in Colorado since legalization when it comes to cannabis, they've actually gone way through the roof. They've gone way up. So it's hard to judge the data there because the data is only just beginning. You'd have to really take it over a long period of time to determine. But yes, no, there is favorable data out there, and I touched on it when it comes to females and pregnancy as well.
Well, according to this article here I'm reading from, this is the U.S. National Library of Medicine, National Institute of Health. They did a study from 2009 to 2015, and they saw the overall annual motor vehicle crashes since legalization. Rates decreased, and this is deaths, from 12.8 fatalities per billion vehicle miles traveled in 2009 to 11.4 fatalities per billion vehicles miles in 2015. So it went down, not significant, but they're showing that it's going down a little bit. And there's a lot of variables that go into that because, I mean, you look at where the population has expanded in other areas. You look at Uber and all these things that have expanded more for there's like group driving, so to speak. But also, it just shows there's some hope where there's no stat that I'm seeing that shows that it's increased other than by an attorney's website that I went to. And their stats were a poll, not an actual control. Like this shows they did a full study.
So no significant increase, significant. Okay, even if there is a slight increase, right? That's what you got to talk about. The pros versus the cons, right? Do we really want to keep this drug illegal just because 6 people maybe die? Versus if we're getting $100 million in tax revenue, which is helping the economy in other ways, right? It's like there is pros versus
saving
cons
lives
there. And
for depression and, I mean, so many things that people don't realize using the plant.
We lose people to bird watching every year, too. They get hit by buses.
Bird watching?
Mm-hmm. They get hit by buses.
These are facts. Maybe pull a link up on you.
Nothing is safe as I've
so much from Pigeons.
There you go, right? I'm just full of facts. This is real facts. Don't ever test me again, Rob. They're all facts.
See?
But no, one of the ways, and I think, it's important to address what am I, when Rob says that we have to look inward when it comes to making change and having an impact on the stigmas surrounding something we're so passionate about. The question is, what am I doing? What am I doing to make the world a better place? But what am I doing for cannabis activism?
Fuck
and and what am I doing to help it grow? And the reality of the situation is we are doing precisely what we're doing. We're creating awareness by creating content, by spreading education and knowledge, bringing people together from all corners of the globe with similar ideas in regards to the plant. This is important. I made a vow to myself that when I created this channel, and as my career has kind of like shaped, that I would try to penetrate and influence as many markets and industries as I could with cannabis, because as you guys know, twitch.tv/pigeons420, I stream game every single night, and I believe that there is a market for cannabis people, individuals, enthusiasts in the gaming industry. And the same reason that I think that there's a market for female cannabis users in the makeup industry. In the same way that I feel that there are uses for cannabis athletes in the Olympics, or in martial arts, or in hockey, or in what I mean? Like, cannabis isn't just a plant. It's a lifestyle. It's something that you introduce to your life to allow you to be the best human being you can be. Keep doing that, But I think share that with other people. Educate your mother and your father and your son and your daughter and your cousin and the old lady at the pharmacy that says that she enjoys a little bit of something in her tea, to help her fall asleep. Have that conversation with her, because that's what's going to change. More conversation about what we're doing as individuals to change the stigma around cannabis.
One of the shirts I have in my merch store, I created it. It's be high, be confident. And really what that comes down to, that saying is,
I need that.
Certainly consume, right? And do your thing, but openly speak about it, is what I'm trying to say is, be confident in the way you're presenting yourself and the way you're educating others. A couple other ways is donating to Normal. Donating to Marijuana Policy Project. These are other ways we can break this stigma, because they're looking at it as a larger scale on redoing some of these cannabis laws. Now, an easy way, I say this in other podcasts, I know, those hardcore folks who have been listening to us since episode 1 know that an easy way to donate to Normal, to Marijuana Policy Project, is if you shop on Amazon. Because if you actually shop on Amazon, you can go to smile.amazon.com instead of just amazon.com. Same exact website. It's just separated for financial purposes, but you can choose a nonprofit organization that you want to donate to. And so every time you make a purchase, they'll donate on your behalf. So every time I make a purchase, I go through smile.amazon.com, and then a small percentage of money gets donated to Normal. So then they're able to obviously refine some of these cannabis laws. And then another way to change the stigma really is contacting these politicians, right? There's so many politicians that are still against cannabis use to this day. And, we touched on it a million times. It's lack of education. Can't speak today. Lack of education. So being able to contact these politicians, and schooling them, letting them know what the benefits are, and so on and so forth.
And vote.
Is going to help drive us in the right direction. And vote.
You got to vote. You got to vote. Yeah, and that comes right down to your local constituent, right down to your mayors, right down to your local school board attendees, to everything, man. Everyone's got an opinion, and you've got to attend those meetings. You've got to go, and you've got to ask, because this is something I am curious about. These are the people that are going to influence our children, right? They're going to see our kids indirectly more than we are. You're right. So we need to ensure that these people that are shaping our children have at least got a decent head on their shoulders. And cannabis acceptance is a major tier of that, because our children at some point are going to come to a time in their life where they have to make a choice. Are they going to use it for non-medical reasons, or will they not? And I want them, whatever path they choose, to have an abundance of education behind them that allows them to make the choice that they need. Do I see myself token with my son someday? If he chooses at a very old age of 45 to consume cannabis, I would love to. I'd love to be attached and have a relationship with my son that is strong enough that he is confident to be able to do something he loves with his father. And heaven forbid he is at an age that is younger than what I deem to be acceptable for my son, which is 65. I am going to be accepting of that, and I'm going to hope that I laid a foundation of education down for him, that he made that choice and can live with it, knowing everything I've taught him. And
he'll smoke dank because he knows who
he'll
Pops
only
is.
Smoke dank because he'll know where Dad's supply is.
You know what I'm saying? And he learned how to grow from Pops. So that's the point, though. You break the stigma. And I think another thing too is being stoned and successful, so to speak. I don't know a lot of people who are full-blown alcoholics who maintain their success. They can get to that point, but it doesn't matter how much you say you make, how much you retain, how much stays in your life, your relationships, because money is not everything in success by any fucking means.
It's nothing. It's actually a very small.
That's literally
portion
like
of
a
success.
measurement in our society to show that we're like, oh, well, that's like the YouTube subscriber count. It really is just a measurement. It's not necessarily what it is. Doesn't represent us. And I think overall, if you can become successful in all areas of your life and you consume the plant, then who the fuck cares that you consume the plant? If you walk around and you wear a shirt that says Stone Successful or weed shit, then you're advertising because you truly love it. But who the fuck cares what you do? It should be comparable to who you vote for or your sexuality. I don't give a fuck. It's not my business. Now, if I want to talk about that, then we should have an educated, good conversation. But when it comes down to what you do in your home or in your free time, it blows my mind that in 2021 or 2022 or whenever you're listening to this, that would be a problem. If it's not affecting somebody outside of there, I know a few people who smoke and are stupid as hell when they smoke. They probably are either on the wrong cultivar or they're just dumb, period. Dumb people. But if they're not hurting anybody.
I'm pretty dumb when I smoke, for the record.
That's why we don't get you too high. But see, that's what I'm saying. It's like some people dumb out, and then you're just at home and you're chilling. You know, like, I'm not going to get too lit and go, like, again, you got to know your inner self, whether that be how you represent yourself, how you use it, how you consume it. It's all about knowing the best for you as an individual. And if you can make yourself the best you can be, it's going to have an effect, and it'll spread, and it's like a snowball effect. And other people may be inspired by that and do the same thing, you know? But it's just, the stigma is going to be there until you as the individual do your part. I think that's the key. And we're doing our best here that we can do. I still rock my shirt where I am because stoned and successful is what I want people to see. Like, hey, I'm stoned and successful, baby. I'm living it. You know what I'm saying?
And you can too. You can too. And don't let anyone stop you. Use this as a motivation to remind yourself that you are on the right mission. You are on the right path. You're not going to hell because of just this vision that cannabis is life-saving. And I do believe that it's this narrative to which we teach that deems us dangerous content here on YouTube. I strongly believe it's that we perpetuate the idea that you can take care of yourself and bring yourself to be the best that you can be using this as a variable. You know, I honestly believe. So it's like there's just another thing that stacks against a guy or a person when it comes to their use in cannabis.
Very well said. Very well said. I don't really have anything else to add
that
except for
pretty much
press that subscribe button if you haven't already.
Fuck. And why hasn't that like button been hit? I know you're probably stoned. I get it. Okay. I
get
smoke
it
a lot,
too.
and I know everybody wants to keep up with my blunt consumption. Okay. I put one out, I light one up. I put one out, I light one up. So just hit the like button when the video starts, because just know we're only gonna be dropping that fire. And we're going to be dropping fire again over on twitch.tv/FromTheStashPodcast every Thursday. Maybe some extra days. We'll just see how that works. Otherwise, I think that covers it, boys. We'll see y'all next week. From the Stash Podcast, it's your boy Rob from Cannabis Lifestyle TV, Pigeons 420, Mr. Grow It. We'll see y'all.
Peace.